Hello everyone, welcome to my update US Gossip channel. Meri screams as Kody Brown get 23 years secret daughter, betrayal and family fortune exposed in court. For years, the Brown family from sister wives has lived in the public eye, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared fans, reporters, or even the Browns themselves for the explosive courtroom showdown that erupted when allegations surfaced that Kody had fathered a secret daughter decades earlier and had quietly funneled money, property, and family assets to support the child behind the scenes. As the courtroom filled with tension so thick it felt suffocating, Meri Brown, already exhausted from years of emotional roller coasters, humiliations, and betrayals, rose from her seat and screamed at Kody in a meltdown that instantly went viral across social media platforms. The courtroom clerk tried to restore order, the judge slammed the gavel with growing impatience, but Meri shouted over all of it, shouting years' worth of pent-up fury, heartbreak, and betrayal, demanding answers for what she called the ultimate deception, a betrayal so severe that it overshadowed even the most painful chapters of her past with Kody. According to testimony and financial documents introduced into evidence, the allegations suggested that Kody had kept the secret daughter hidden from all of his wives, even as he demanded loyalty, obedience, and financial sacrifice from Meri, Janelle, Christine, and Robin throughout the heyday of their plural marriage. But the breaking point arrived when an independent financial investigator, brought into the case after years of confusing property transfers and unusual withdrawals from family accounts, uncovered a trail leading directly back to a minor child Kody allegedly fathered more than 2 decades earlier during a period of marital instability that had never been discussed publicly. The investigator testified that substantial funds from businesses tied to the Brown family, including profits from early sister wives' appearances, book sales, and real estate ventures, appeared to have been redirected discreetly to support the child's education, housing, and even a trust that was set to fully mature at her 23rd birthday. A milestone that coincidentally aligned with the exact number of years the judge referenced when he delivered the initial punitive ruling. When Kody's attorney attempted to argue that the payments were charitable contributions or investments unrelated to family obligations, Meri could no longer contain her rage. She leapt from her chair, pointed directly at Kody, and screamed that he had destroyed their marriage with lies upon lies, that he had betrayed not just her but the entire family system he claimed to protect, and that this secret daughter represented more than a private mistake but a deliberate, long-term pattern of deception that spanned decades. Courtroom observers reported that Meri's voice shook the walls, echoing with a rawness that comes only from someone who has been publicly humiliated for years but finally reaches a moment where the truth is too massive to ignore. Her words spilled out with decades of suppressed emotion, how she stayed faithful through the catfishing scandal aftermath, how she endured emotional neglect, how she watched Kody prioritize other wives while she was pushed further into isolation, and now, this. The judge finally ordered Meri to control herself or be escorted out, but even then she continued to cry openly while security positioned themselves closer to the benches, ready for anything. Meanwhile, Kody sat in a rigid, defensive posture, arms crossed, jaw clenched, eyes refusing to meet Meri's gaze even once, while Robin, wide-eyed and trembling, dabbed tears from her face, murmuring prayers under her breath as if hoping to will the chaos into silence. Christine, who had always been more outspoken and unafraid to challenge Kody, looked horrified but unsurprised. She whispered to Janelle that everything makes sense now, referencing years of unexplained financial shortages and Kody's sudden insistence on redividing properties like Coyote Pass. Janelle, always the financially responsible one, clutched her folder of documents tightly against her chest, her face pale with shock as she realized that Kody's constant claims of being financially stretched may have stemmed not from mismanagement but from covertly supporting a child none of the wives knew existed. Robin tried to defend Kody weakly, insisting this couldn't be true, but even she seemed shaken as the investigator read out the names of accounts tied to LLCs she recognized, accounts she had assumed were related to their shared home mortgage or her children's school expenses. The judge, irritated by the mounting arguments and emotional outbursts, declared that the documentation spoke for itself: trust funds, tuition payments, property arrangements, and recurring deposits over a span of 23 years. And then came the bombshell: the secret daughter, now an adult, had submitted a sworn statement confirming she had met Kody privately several times throughout her childhood. She stated she had been told to stay quiet for her own protection and that Kody promised her he would publicly acknowledge her when the family was ready, but that he continued to postpone the moment year after year. With this revelation, Meri's meltdown intensified. She screamed at Kody that while she spent years trying to win back his affection, he had been giving love, money, and attention to a child he refused to admit existed, a child he never even discussed with his legally recognized children. She shouted that he had destroyed the integrity of their already fragile family, sacrificed the trust of every wife, and abandoned the moral foundation he always preached about. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras clicked despite the judge's warnings against photography, and legal analysts on social media platforms immediately began dissecting what this meant for the Browns' already fractured empire. The financial implications were catastrophic. Not only did the existence of the secret daughter raise questions about the legality of how Kody allocated shared family funds, but it also opened the door for potential civil penalties, restitution, and future litigation from wives who claimed they were misled financially for decades. Meri, in particular, argued that she had been gaslit repeatedly when she questioned where money was going, especially during the years she struggled with the emotional fallout of being effectively pushed out of the marriage. Janelle remembered multiple arguments over Coyote Pass budgets, and Christine recalled fighting with Kody over financial shortages while raising her children largely alone. The judge, visibly disturbed by the mountain of evidence, announced preliminary consequences: a 23-year period of financial misrepresentation, intentional concealment, and misuse of shared marital assets, all of which would be addressed during future hearings but for which he was issuing an immediate sanction, one that journalists quickly simplified into the headline, "Kody gets 23 years, though the legal language was far more complex. As Meri sobbed into her hands, unable to collect herself, Kody finally stood to speak, but instead of apologizing or clarifying the allegations, he exploded in frustration, yelling that the court was biased, that his family was turning against him, and that the media had poisoned the process. But the judge shut him down instantly, reminding him that the documents came from his own accounts and that the investigation was launched only after years of irregularities too significant to ignore. For the first time in sister-wives history, the facade of unity, spiritual commitment, and shared purpose completely shattered in a public, legal setting, leaving the world stunned as the courtroom spiraled into chaos. After the judge dismissed the session, Meri collapsed into Christine's arms, sobbing uncontrollably, while Janelle, in her calm but devastated voice, whispered that this was the final straw, the moment where the truth finally overcame decades of secrecy. Robin clung to Kody, crying hysterically as he stormed out of the courtroom, his lawyer scrambling behind him, reporters shouting questions about the secret daughter, financial deception, and the future of his relationships with his wives and children. Outside, fans gathered with signs demanding justice for the women who had sacrificed so much while Kody allegedly built a second life in the shadows. Social media erupted instantly, hashtags like #KodyExposed, #MeriScreams, #BrownFamilyScandal, and #23-year secret daughter trended for days as fans, critics, and former acquaintances weighed in with theories, timelines, and emotional responses. Longtime viewers expressed shock but also a grim sense of inevitability, noting that Kody's evasiveness, erratic financial decisions, and shifting loyalties had been visible on camera for years. But no one, not even the most dedicated online detectives, expected a secret daughter and a complex web of hidden financial dealings that spanned nearly a quarter of a century. As the Browns left the courthouse through separate exits, the chapter closed not with resolution but with a storm of questions. Would Meri pursue independent legal action? Would Janelle demand full restitution? Would Christine finally feel vindicated for leaving? Would Robin stand by Kody now that the image she defended for years had been irreparably shattered? And would the secret daughter step forward publicly to share her story? For now, one thing was certain, the Brown family would never be the same again, and the explosive courtroom scandal that left Meri screaming, the judge furious, and Kody exposed would go down as the most shocking moment in sister-wives history, a betrayal so massive it dismantled the remnants of a plural marriage that once captivated millions and ultimately revealed a truth far stranger and more heartbreaking than any episode TLC ever aired. And yet, even as the dust settled outside the courthouse, the emotional aftermath continued to swell behind closed doors, Because once the cameras stopped rolling and reporters were pushed back by security, the Browns were forced to face one another without the buffer of legal procedures and courtroom formality. Meri, still shaking from the intensity of her outburst, refused to even look in Kody's direction. She sat with her face buried in her hands, her breathing uneven, every muscle in her body trembling from the adrenaline of finally releasing decades of suppressed anguish. Christine tried to comfort her, rubbing her back gently, whispering that this truth, no matter how painful, was something Meri deserved to know years ago. Janelle, meanwhile, stood in stunned silence near the courthouse steps, staring at the sky as though trying to make sense of how their once promised eternal family had unraveled into a scandal so massive it threatened everything they ever built. She muttered to herself that she should have trusted her instincts years earlier, especially during the many nights she stayed up balancing the family budget, wondering why their finances never added up despite everyone sacrificing so much. She remembered Kody dismissing her concerns as exaggerations or miscalculations, but now she understood that the entire time, the real reason was hidden deep within secret wire transfers and undisclosed accounts. Inside a waiting SUV, Robin clung to Kody's arm like it was the only thing